Welcome back to Gale Force Wins Season 4.
The Gale Force Wins podcast is proudly sponsored by the Newfoundland and Labrador Construction Association. The NLCA provides unparalleled opportunities for its members through industry education, construction information, government advocacy, and networking events. The NLCA is building Newfoundland and Labrador. For more information, visit nlca.ca.
Hi, I'm Allan Dale, or Al Dale as some people know me, and welcome to what is going to be an interesting journey. Where do I start? Well, I'm on a flight right now. It's 0500, and I'm flying from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island to Toronto. I'll wait a little bit, and my next leg will be to Frankfurt, and ultimately today I'll end my journey in Belgrade, Serbia. So this is going to be a kind of an unusual Gale Force Wins episode. It's just going to be me, and it's going to be me leaving a bit of a legacy piece for my dad. So where do I start with this entire journey? So at the moment, I just got off a plane from Charlottetown. I left at 5 in the morning, and I'm now in Toronto Airport. I'm on my way to Frankfurt, and then ultimately I'll make my way to Belgrade in Serbia. And you might ask yourself, what's bringing me to Serbia? Now, that's a great question, and I think I got to go back a few steps before I get there. So I like to start the story with my granddad. My granddad, Arthur Thomas Dale, was a home child. And many people may not know what a home child is, but a home child is children that were in orphanages in London, and they were taken out of the orphanages, often against their parents' will or even knowledge, and sent around the world, normally to Australia, South Africa, and in this case, Canada. My granddad and his younger brother were separated in the orphanage, one sent to Australia, we think, and my granddad sent to East Hants, Nova Scotia, where at the age of 8 or 10, we're not quite sure, he worked on a farm there, and that's what brought the Dale family to Canada. Fast forward a little bit, and my dad was born in Assiniboine, Saskatchewan, and then eventually they made their way back to Nova Scotia, and my dad, Allan Thomas Dale, also known as Al Dale, was raised in essence in Truro, Nova Scotia. At a young age, he made his way to Newfoundland, where he met my mom, and my mom was a St. John's woman, to be sure. Met my mom, they married, had 5 children. I am the youngest of all of the children, and indeed the only boy. I have 4 older sisters. You know, my dad worked at Canadian National Telecommunications, which at the time was Canada's national telecommunication company, and my dad worked there for well over 3 decades. To say that my dad enjoyed his work would not be incredibly accurate. My dad did his work. He put his head down and he worked to raise his family, and indeed we had a wonderful upbringing. There was no doubt about that. We wanted for nothing. Certainly we were raised in a great atmosphere in St. John's, and I couldn't have asked for any better growing up. But my dad's passion really came alive in his retirement. He was around 57 or 58 years old when he decided that he was going to become an international election observer. This part of my dad's life, this legacy career, sparked joy in him like I've never seen before. His passion for international election observing and his passion for travel and the people that he met along the way was absolutely incredible. So that brings me to this conversation. So I'm 57, like my dad was then, and I now am following in my dad's footsteps and going on my very first international election observation mission. I'm heading off to Serbia, which was actually where my dad's last mission took place some 20 years ago. So this whole Gale Force Wins episode is me video journaling this entire experience that I'm about to go through, and it's also meant to be a celebration of my dad's legacy career and following in in his footsteps. So I hope you enjoy every part of it. I know I'm certainly going to enjoy it. Before we go much further, I would like to acknowledge my wonderful wife Janet for encouraging me to do this and supporting me every step of the way, and of course my kids Tom and Olivia for cheering me on every step of the way. And it'd be remiss if I didn't mention my business partner Jerry Carew, co-owner of Gale Force Wins with me. Jerry's back in Newfoundland holding down the fort while I go off on this adventure, and in fact Jerry will be editing this entire video for the benefit of everybody involved. So stick with me. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful journey, and thank you for being a part of it, and I really look forward to how this thing unfolds and leaving this little bit of legacy in memory of my dad. Thanks. Yeah. So right now I'm on a very cool, funky street, Serbia Street, which is in the heart of Belgrade. It's kind of a funky bohemian restaurant district, and I'm about to go to this very, very famous restaurant. It's called the Three Hats. Of course, it has a Serbian name that I can't quite pronounce, but in essence it relates to the Three Hats. And tonight I'll have a full-on Serbian meal. But let me tell you about the journey to get here. It was 36 hours in totality to make this journey from Prince Edward Island to Belgrade. And what was really cool about it, notwithstanding the long flights and the long waits, but what was really cool about it was that meeting more election observers all along the way. So every single time that we would make a stop, whether it was in Toronto, whether it was in Frankfurt, and then finally in Nikola Tesla Airport in Belgrade, we would be gathering more and more people. And what I found really remarkable was that these were people from all walks of life and from really all over the globe. They were young and they were old and they were gender diverse, and there was a mix of everything really, and they were from small parts of their country. They weren't all from the capital cities, although there were some of those folks as well. But it's a really interesting mix of humanity, all coming together with the common goal of overseeing an election, the world coming together to kind of lend some support and some help. So I thought it was really kind of fascinating meeting all of those people along the way. Tomorrow we've got a pretty heavy day around information packages and the do's and the don'ts, and really kind of bringing us up to speed on what we want to do. But I can tell you already that it's already been an incredibly rewarding experience for me. Listening to many of the people that are involved in this, many of them had family and friends that had done it before. And of course, that provided me the opportunity to tell many of them about my dad and the amount of elections that he did. And they were kind of blown away that my dad had done so many and started so early down this journey. But it's a really cool thing to do. And I'm proud to be a part of it. So, met some good people already. I'm in a really cool place, about to go out and have some kebab cheese, some Kaimak cheese, some Kara Giorgio sausage. I'm going to have it all tonight. It's going to be a wonderful Serbian experience, and I want to tell you, if you've not been to this part of the world, put that on your to-do list, because Belgrade and indeed Serbia is truly a beautiful place. But the architecture is one thing, but the people here are really quite special. So put that on your list and stay tuned for more of this conversation as it unfolds. Thanks for joining me. I'm here in Belgrade, Serbia, and I'm part of the International Election Observation Group, sponsored by the Government of Canada, more directly by Global Affairs Canada. And thank you to the government to having the trust and the faith in Canada Dem to allow me to come over here and bring a little bit of that Canadian brand to this very important process. You know, people often ask me why I would do something like this, and for me, it's pretty simple. I'm a very proud Canadian, and I truly believe in service before self, and selfishly, I'm also following my father's legacy. My dad did 16 of these elections, through this very same organization with Global Affairs and the Government of Canada, and some of them even with Canada Dem. And I can tell you that he was very proud of what he did, and I want to follow in his footsteps and build on the legacy that he did. So thank you very much, and please stay tuned for many more conversations around this important work. Well, that was a wonderful wrap to day 3. I want to tell you, today was all about understanding the entire election process. So the whole day was actually spent inside a briefing room in a beautiful hotel, the Hilton, right in downtown Belgrade. And you would think that would be kind of a boring day. Can you imagine being in a room all day to learn about this election process? But here's what I want to tell you. It was the exact opposite. It was incredibly professionally run, right down from the head of the mission, which is an ambassador, right down to all of the observers, and they took care of every single detail. Talked about the safety of the country, talked about what we should and should not do as election observers, really, and even broke down sort of the country in a nutshell, the political landscape, explained all the different voting groups, and for many people in the country, their electoral system here is much different, so we had to go through all of that, but it was an incredible process to learn about it. And I have to tell you, my perspective is, as an election observer for this, I really feel like I'm going to make a difference here. I feel like we're very welcome here, for one, and that indeed the work that we're doing is important work to make sure that this is a fair election, and what more could you really ask for? I want to tell you that, again, I said it at the beginning, but I'm incredibly honored to be a part of this process. And the other really neat thing about it is you could probably see from the amounts of people in and around me, there's well over 300 people here with me today, and they come from all around the world, all leaning in to help in some way for this fair and free election here in Serbia. So it's kind of really neat to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And so day 3, notwithstanding, it was all in a room, all lined up in tables, learning about the election process. I want to tell you that it was incredibly rewarding. Tomorrow, another day, we leave Belgrade and head off to our respective locations, of which there's 14 around the country. So some people will be going in great distance, a 5-hour drive from here, meeting with other people and get a briefing. Tomorrow is all about that, going to your region and getting a briefing there. So there's an incredible amount of excitement in the room, and certainly proud to be a part of it. That's day 3 and a wrap right there, and stay tuned because there's plenty more to come, and what an incredibly rewarding experience this has been thus far. So here I am in Vrsac, which is in southern Banat in Serbia. And this is where I've been sent on day 4 of my international election observation. So, hi again, I'm Allan Dale with Gale Force Wins, and this is a very interesting part of Serbia that I'm in right now. So let me take you through day 4. And so day 4 was leaving Belgrade, heading into the countryside where we met halfway with a number of other election observers, where we were then given some political insight into the part of the country that we were going to. And so where I am right now is the southern part of Serbia, right on the Romanian border. And this town is Vrsac, forgive my pronunciation. And tomorrow, tomorrow I go even further south, right down to the Romanian border, where we'll oversee the election. So my job tomorrow is with a counterpart, another election observer named Ulia. Ulia is from the Russian Federation. She works for the Russian Foreign Office. She and I will be the 2 election observers. And together with our driver, we have a driver and an interpreter, both from this part of Serbia. Our driver's, his name is Milan, and he's, believe it or not, he's a computer science guy. He's a programmer. He's traveled extensively throughout the United States, working in fish plants of all things. And our interpreter, her name is Maria, or Marushka, and Maria is, she grew up, her mom was a librarian. She grew up in a library, and she learned how to speak English by reading books in the library that her mom worked at. Right now I'm on the main street here in Vrsac, and we're getting ready. So I'm out with some of my other colleagues, and they'll spread out into the countryside tomorrow. Tonight I'm dining with a gentleman from Germany, a gentleman from Detroit, Michigan, a woman from France and Paris, and a woman from Malmo, Sweden. And so we're part of the team that will all be dispatching into the countryside. So today was all about learning the political landscape, trying to understand the geography of which we would be traveling, and then finally really coming to grips with what we're looking for tomorrow. So tomorrow when we go out into the field, or sorry, not tomorrow, on election day, they call it E-Day. So when we go into the field on E-Day, we have a very set number of things that we're looking for at a number of different points throughout the election to make sure it's all free and fair. So that's 2 days from now. So tomorrow we go back into the field and kind of lay out the route we're going to take, because the countryside can be a little complicated around here. This is all agriculture country, and it's farm roads and the like. So you've got to kind of plan out your route, and that's what tomorrow is for. But today was really all getting up to speed on the political landscape of what's going on and the area that we're going into, and the politics and the like in the area. We got those briefings from a team called a long-term observers, LTOs, they're referred to as. And our LTO, we've got one from Great Britain, and here's the cool thing. That particular observer was on a mission with my dad in 1997. So I got to meet him, and he remembered my dad from 1997. And the other long-term observer is another guy from the Russian Federation, also working at their foreign ministry office. And so the 2 of those, the British guy and the Russian fella, they briefed us on the whole political situation that we're going to face tomorrow. So pretty exciting day. Now we're in the small town that we're going to base out of tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll scatter through the countryside and figure out the route we're going to take, and then the next day, of course, is E-Day. So that's update day number 4 from Serbia. Thanks for following along, and stay at, keep following the conversation, because it's going to be exciting, and it's, again, I can't state enough how proud I am to be doing this type of work. And having the privilege to do this type of work, but how proud I am to be following in my dad's footsteps as we do it. It's so cool to meet somebody that interacted with my dad in 1997 in the same part of the world in Serbia. So very cool. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be in touch soon.
Ovaj, vi si
Well, what another incredible day here in Serbia on this mission as an international election observer. Right now, I'm in an incredible, cool little town called Versace in the Madat region of Serbia, and it's a very, very historic place where I am. Those mountains behind me are actually looking into Romania, so the whole area is a very complex, cool place. Hungary to the north, Romania to the east, and of course Serbia and Macedonia to the south. And I want to tell you that it's a very cool place. So just to kind of bring up a little bit on kind of what I've been doing. Yesterday we had some initial briefings in a town called Pančevo. Pančevo is not far from Belgrade. It's about 45 minutes outside of the city, east of the city. So we drove out to Pančevo. So basically there was, 250 election observers, all in Belgrade. We were subdivided up to head out into the countryside. There was 24 of us, made our way to Pančevo. And in Pančevo, we got a big briefing on the political situation around that particular region of Serbia. And that was really cool to get all of that kind of information. A lot of it was brought to us by our long-term observers. They gave us a good appreciation for what was happening. Then we were further divided up in half. So 12 of us then left Pančevo and went to a place called Versace. And Versace is where I am now. And it's, as I said, a very cool place. But today, what I had to do was I left Versace and further divided up again. Now we're in teams of two. So it's myself and my colleague Yulia from the Russian Federation. Today, we went further into the countryside and we are scheduled to go to a place called Bela Crkva. So Bela Crkva is right on the Romanian border. And today our whole job was to travel around the countryside to find all of the polling stations that tomorrow we'll eventually go visit. So back through the country roads. This is a heavy, heavy agriculture part of Serbia. So we're traveling through back roads, but I want to tell you, so cool to see the farms and the farmhouses and meet some of the people. So today we went from polling station to polling station, determining where we need to go tomorrow when we start on election day. And election day starts quite early, which means that we have to be up and early and at it so that we can get to all of those various polling stations. We have a routine when we get there, and it's probably best to talk about that now because tomorrow it's going to be a very long day and there probably won't be time to do one of these conversations. So in essence, how this works is you have to be at the first polling station for its opening. So it opens at 7 o'clock in the morning. The staff arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning. You have to be there before the staff arrives. Watch them set the entire polling station up. There's a little checklist that you fill out, and the way we do this is there's an electronic form with an electronic pen, and you just start ticking off and you add information, and this all automatically gets uploaded into the kind of headquarters of the mission observers, and it's all this information is flowing in from all of these observers all at the same time. So it's pretty slick thing. So that's opening. So you do that from 6 o'clock in the morning until the first voter arrives at 7 o'clock. When that first voter arrives at 7 o'clock, then you just go through the process of that first voter, and then that's the first little part of what you do. So that's opening day, or opening the opening ballot. So then that's the first part. Then you go up to 12 different polling stations. So that route that we planned out today, you start down that route and you try to get to 6, 8, 10, or 12 polling stations. And you're not so much looking for quantity as you are quality of information. So you go into these polling stations and you have a routine and a series of forms that you have to fill out. Again, all uploaded. You go through all of that, and then finally you come to the final polling station that you're going to be at for that night, and it's there that you make sure that the close down procedure is correct. So the closing of a polling station, that's a whole other series of forms that you need to fill out. From there, you work with that group of people, and go ahead, ma'am. You work with that group of people, and you take those ballot boxes to a main counting area. And once you go in that main counting area, you can't leave. So when you're in the main counting area, you're in there basically for the night or until all the tabulation is done. So you we'll leave at 5:45 in the morning, start at 5:45 in the morning, and they expect the count could be conceivably be done somewhere between 2 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's in that time that you stay in that tabulation area in that voting center. And so that's the day in a nutshell tomorrow. Today was all about planning for tomorrow so that we're all ready to go tomorrow. I can tell you this. You can say a lot of things about international observation, international work. Sometimes it can be clunky. Sometimes it may not be the smoothest process. But what I want to tell you is that I have never seen anything run as smooth as this whole election observation process. It's really quite slick. There's people here from all around the world working on this together, and it's all happening without any issues whatsoever. So the team of 12 of us that are here, we've got people from Russia, Sweden, France, the United States, obviously Canada, Germany. We're from all over, and we're all working together. Last night I had a wonderful meal with my colleagues with such a great international conversation around politics and around life and so much stuff. What an incredible evening it was that we had last night. So tonight it's all about getting some rest, getting ready for tomorrow morning, because it's sure to be an incredible day here on E-Day in Serbia tomorrow. My day started with a great breakfast, and I was reflecting when I was having breakfast how much my dad loved food. He really did, and just different food and all that kind of stuff. And the breakfast came out and it was nothing special. It was just a breakfast, but it had some Serbian sausage, some Serbian cheese, and a few eggs. And I was thinking to myself how much my dad would have enjoyed just even that simple experience. And to be reliving that just like he would have done so many years ago was very cool for me. So that's it for this day, and tomorrow is E-Day, and I hope that I can do one of these somewhere along the way on E-Day, but we'll see how that goes. So that's where I am right now. Left Pančevo, made it to Versace today, Bela Crkva. Tomorrow I'm back out into the countryside on the Romanian border to oversee the Serbian election. Thank you. Well, this is E-Day, and it's 5:30 in the morning. My colleague Ilya has just arrived as well. We're waiting for our interpreter and our driver, and our day will now begin. And the day is going to be long. It's going to be exciting, and this is really the meat of everything that we've been kind of leading up to is today. So today we've planned out our route as I've explained yesterday. So now it's just following down that route and being a little bit sort of kind of agile and able to flow with the events of the day, because of course nothing ever goes to plan. So this is just about really following along and making sure we gather as much information as we can to kind of help out here. Pretty exciting day. It's early. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a great sleep last night. I woke up to a horrible dream that I had missed this whole thing. It was the dream was so vivid. I was rushing around and I was so embarrassed. But here I am today. I woke up with great conversation back in Canada with my wife. She showed me a picture of the Christmas tree she's just put up. Kids just came home from Christmas. So it's a wonderful feeling to be kind of away and on the road doing something like this, knowing that everything is safe and secure at home. So I'm in a really good space right now to head out on E-Day here in Serbia. So not sure if I can get another update in today, but what I do want to say is that I'm pretty excited about today. So thank you. So back in the hotel, it's E-Day, and already have been at our first polling station. So like I talked about yesterday, this was really a lot about watching the setup procedure. So very cool, frost on the cars, left the hotel, complete darkness, made our way to our first polling station, which was in a local high school. And in that high school, on the top floor of the high school, like any Canadian high school, there was 3 classrooms set aside for polling stations. All the people arrived and they unpacked all of the tools for an election day. And initially, it was a little bit kind of chaotic. People were trying to find their place and what their duties were. But it quickly turned around and everybody started to put the things in place. Oftentimes what happens is somebody who's done all of this before kind of steps up, and it was an older gentleman in this case, and he'd been down this road before, and he kind of put everything in its place. Some people were in the room, they calmed the whole situation. They had exactly 60 minutes to set everything up, and believe it or not, right at 7 o'clock, the first voter arrived. So far, an incredible experience watching a polling station open in Serbia, and I have to tell you that I'm pretty proud to be doing what I'm doing. My colleague is straight across the table from me now, and we're having a coffee together before we head back out into the field and get on with our day. You want to say hi?
Yes.
Sure. So we'll turn it around and meet. Come around this way, Julia. Yeah. So this is my. There we go. Just come down here. So this
Hello
is.
to everyone.
So Julia, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from.
Well, I'm from the Russian Federation. I work for the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and I'm also so proud to be here in Serbia and work with Allan. He's a very great colleague, and I think that we will enjoy this process of observation of election in Serbia.
So there you go. That's what it looks like. So we were started at 250. We've reduced down in size down to 24 in this region, then further reduced down to 12. And now it's Julia and I heading into the field. And just across on another table are colleagues of ours, one from Sweden and one from Germany, and they're going to a different part. This is such a cool experience, and I highly recommend it to anybody to try this. Thank you. So here I am on the Romanian border. So it's as far into Serbia as you can get to Romania. Romania is only 200 meters behind me. We've just finished some work at a polling station. Now in that polling station, there were 79 registered voters in this community, of which 69 had voted already. So they were sitting around waiting for 8 o'clock to come so they could start the counting procedure. But this is a very cool part of Serbia, so very close to Romania. In fact, all of the signs in this community are in Hungarian, Romanian, and 2 types of Serbian languages on every single street sign. Very cool place. In fact, the restaurant that I'm about to dine on has been recommended by everybody that we've talked to, up to and including the folks in Belgrade. So you can kind of see a little bit behind me the kind of restaurant that I'll be going to. And just over here, I probably can't really see, but back down there, that's in fact, that's Romania. So a very interesting day. We've been to a lot of cool polling stations, and you know, some of the highlights was one of the polling stations was in a school in a little village, and that little school, the patron of the school is actually from Canada. She sends money over every single year, and they were overwhelmed that I was from Canada. It was just kind of a neat Canadian experience to be in that kind of conversation. At another polling station I was at, it was about as a remote village as you could ever imagine, way in the back, country roads, and this little agricultural community, and I stepped outside to have a look around. It's kind of part of the process. You kind of look outside the polling station, make sure there's no campaigning and stuff. And the first guy I run into is a Serbian gentleman whose son actually plays in the OHL. And not only that, but this Serbian dad, who part-times between Serbia and Canada, he's actually the general manager of the Red Star hockey team right here in Serbia. So you can't go too far and you'll find a Canadian. So overall, been a tremendous experience halfway through E-Day right now. So we've been to 8 polling stations so far, a few more to go, and then we get into the counting of the votes. But what an incredible experience I am right now. So Allan Dale on the Serbian-Romanian border, an absolute pleasure to be in conversation. Hi, here I am. This is post-election day, and I'm downtown Srkva. Apologize for the audio on this one. Thought I'd go a little bit unplugged so I could capture some of my thoughts initially. So what an incredible day. Started at 5 in the morning and it ended at around 2:30 by the time we got back to the hotel. So just to break it down, in essence, we went to a polling station. We watched the opening. It was quite a process. I talked about that in a previous video. And then we made our way back, had a little breakfast, kind of regather our thoughts and start down our journey of visiting polling station to polling station. So basically the way it worked was we would show up at a polling station. We'd have a series of basically checklists that we'd have to go through, and we would record all that information and then pass it up directly electronically up to the central office in Belgrade, where they would monitor the entire election from all of the outstations. So it was really a great kind of random selection of areas that we were sent to allow them to have a good understanding of how the election was playing out. But in essence, when you walk into that polling station, you're just really looking for a process. And the process in this case looked a little bit like this. They would scan the person's right index finger to see if they had already voted. And the way they would determine that is they would spray a substance on their finger. So they would scan to make sure they hadn't voted, and then they would monitor if they were on the election list. You have to show an ID, just like everywhere else in the world. You show an ID, write that off the list. They sign the fact that they've been on the voters list, and then off they go to get spray put on their finger to make sure they don't vote again. And then they get their ballot. They take their ballot and they go in behind what we would normally understand as sort of a voting station. Now, the ballots, it's very hard to describe just how big they are. The ballots were really, really over large, almost like a poster size. And in essence, there was 13 series of parties or lists, proportional representation lists, where you would just circle a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And all you had to do was circle the 1 right down to the 13 or whatever one you chose. Couldn't circle more than 1, just circle simply 1, and that would be a casting of a ballot. But the process was very quick, but these ballots were huge. So you go in behind this little voting station with this huge poster and you circle it, stuff that into a ballot box, and we were there to monitor that process. Make sure the ballot boxes were sealed, make sure the votes went in properly, and make sure that there was no people talking to each other while they were voting. Now, we weren't to do anything. If we saw that, we would just observe it and make a comment on it or not. And quite honestly, we were out in the country, and I'm sure like many parts of rural, anywhere in the world, everybody knew each other when they went into the polling stations, and it was a very kind of, not a joyous occasion, but it was a very relaxed, very happy occasion. You could see people meeting friends that they might not have seen for a while. So it was really kind of a neat experience. And then we did 11 polling stations yesterday, surveyed 11 polling stations, and then we finally made our way to the last polling station of the day, where we had to witness the closing procedure. Now, this is, in essence, exactly what it sounds like. As soon as 8 p.m. came, the polls closed, or the voting, the election stopped. They would lock the door, and if anybody was in the lineup, of course, those people were allowed in. And then they went through a very, very logical sequence to make sure that all of the votes were properly counted and the like. Now, in my polling station, Yasanova was the name of it, in a remote little village, in a beautiful little schoolhouse, that we counted our votes. Now, in that particular village, there was 1,600 registered voters, of which 619 people voted. It took us 4.5 hours to go through the process of counting 619 votes. And it sounds long, and it is long, but I want to tell you, it was a process. They followed it step by step by step to make sure that it was fair and that everything was counted properly. And while it seemed long, certainly seemed long at the time, it was very logical. Then we followed those votes, those ballots, or put in bags, and we followed those to what's called a local election committee. So every sort of region has a local election committee. They call them LECs. And we go to that LEC, and there we watch that whole process of all of these votes, not only the one that we were at, but all the ones from that area funneling into this LEC, where they register them one by one, not each vote, but each category of votes. So all the people that voted for 1 and 2 and 3, so on. Any spoil ballots, those were all counted separately. Any mobile ballots. So a mobile ballot's kind of an interesting thing. That's where a person simply can't make it to the polling station. So the polling station goes to them. They have a whole process. They go to their home, they vote, they double envelope it, it comes back, and those are all put in. So all of those things are all counted separately at the LEC. It goes back into the LEC, and in the LEC, then they start tabulating the results. And that's what we would kind of know as you're watching the TV flow out, that this riding is coming in, so many polls are coming in. Same idea, except it's really more of a manual, less computerized process. So that was the whole thing. Then we packed into the car at 2 o'clock in the morning to come back to the hotel. And that was election day in a nutshell. And I want to say this, it's what an absolute, privilege to be involved in another country's election, working with an international community to kind of just this cooperative nature. We weren't there to oversee, we weren't there to direct, we weren't there to do any of that. We were simply there to observe, so that so that we could have a good appreciation for how the election went. We were tired and hungry when we got back, but it was, you go to bed and you're almost buzzing because of what you've just witnessed. So that was election day in a nutshell, and 11 polling stations, 11 different, series of personalities and colorful characters, every single one of them offering you food and coffee and whatever you needed. Not to sway the way you observe things, but they were just genuinely hospitable people that wanted you to be comfortable, and so impressed that people had come, in my case, from Russia and Canada to witness their election. And they were apologizing how cold it got in the end of the evening, and we kept having to tell them, well, I'm from Canada and my colleagues from Russia, we kind of understand cold. It was basically the whole time here, it's like a fall day in Canada, and it's just a beautiful place, a beautiful country. Highly recommend a visit to Serbia. Certainly this area, the Banat region, is just, it's spectacular. It's hard to describe just how beautiful the culture is and how great the food is and how wonderful the people is. So that was election day in a nutshell. Again, apologize for the audio today. I thought I'd go a little bit unplugged, and I'm hoping that during this episode that this will draw your attention, because the sound will sound completely different. But Jerry, working his magic, will figure all this out. So here I am. If we walk around, you can see where I'm stood right now in the sort of main town square, and I want to tell you, it's a wonderful place to visit, and thank you very much. So here I am. It is one day past the election, and today, just like we slowly moved out into the countryside. Today we slowly moved back towards the city center of Belgrade. Just as we went out, we did this one-day stop in Pančevo, which is where I am now back to. I'm in Pančevo. This morning started where we went out to our local election committees, and that one was in Bela Crkva for me. Again, that's way out by Romania. There we kind of had a look around what was happening after the election. To see if all the ballots were still secure, if they were working on any discrepancies or anything like that. So our goal was to go back out there first thing this morning, check all of that out, and we did. You know, a very logical process that they were having, putting all the pieces together. And then off we go back here to Pančevo. So we arrive in Pančevo. It's here that we depart with Milan and Mariška. So that's our driver and interpreter. We depart ways with them. We basically settle up all of our expenses and gas and all of that kind of administration tasks. Settled up, said goodbye to them. They were wonderful folks to take us around. So that part is now complete. We have about an hour off before we settle into a debrief. So all of the 24 people, so there was, as you recall, 24 of us came to this area, then 12 were split off into the countryside. Now us 12 have come back, meet the other 12 who remained here in Pančevo. So we all come back, all 24 of us this evening, for a debrief. Talk about what we've seen, the observations that we've made, you know, talk a little bit about the entire experience so that the whole group can have a better understanding of what happened there. And tomorrow, when we get back into Belgrade, even a broader picture. So that's what today is all about. It's pretty exciting. You know, you make new friends along the way, and you say goodbye with your driver and interpreter. You know, you tend to build a bit of a working relationship with these folks because you're with each other, and particularly yesterday we were with them for 20 hours straight, you know, and really getting to know one another and relying on each other in the whole moment. So you say goodbye to them, and now we're back with the broader team, other observers, again from around the world, which is such a very cool experience. So that's kind of election day +1. Debrief tonight, and we'll see what interesting stories I might have from that. But I can tell you that, again, I happen to be in a lovely spot. You can see around me here. It's just a lovely downtown core to this city, and you know, I'm pretty happy to have been a part of the entire experience. So yeah, so stay tuned. So here I am on really the second day after the election. It's the final day that the entire international community will be together. As we had talked about, the community had spread out, all 350 of us across the country. Went out into the countryside, slowly worked our way back into more urban centers, and now we're back in the main capital of Belgrade. And a remarkable experience, an ability to work with people all over the world. Tonight I just took a little 5-kilometer stroll from our hotel down to this main shopping area right in Belgrade, which is absolutely beautiful and stunning place to be. The overall experience was excellent. I have to tell you that this type of work is exciting, and it's rewarding. It's not for everybody. It's a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of kind of hard work, but you have to be very agile in everything that you do when you do it. But anybody that's interested in this type of thing, I would so highly recommend it. It's so very rewarding. So I'll take a little stroll around this area here so that you can see exactly what I'm looking at and have some bit of a perspective for just how beautiful a city Belgrade actually is. It is really, truly remarkable. As I walk around, you can see the architecture. It's simply fantastic. And I highly encourage anybody get the opportunity to come visit this absolutely incredible city. It really is quite something. If you look down that way, there's nothing but shops, and it ends at a castle, and it really is quite a spectacular place. Thank you very much for tuning in. Ela completa, sim. So this will be my final conversation around my experience as a long-term election observer in Serbia. I'm just on the flight now from Frankfurt all the way back to Toronto and then jump back to Charlottetown. Started my morning in Belgrade, Serbia. And I apologize for the lighting. It's they have the plane dimmed here, so I'm at the luxury of Air Canada's lighting, so please bear with me on that. But I think it's kind of a unique location to have this conversation at any rate. So yesterday ended with a large debrief from the organizers, the controlling group of the team that I went over to observe the election with. Again, all 350 observers we're now back in Belgrade for our final debrief. And in essence, we talked about the election holistically, how it was perceived from their point of view, the statements that they'd made to the media, the observations that they had made, combined in totality. And what was interesting was what we saw in the rural regions, what I saw way out into the countryside was really not much different than everybody else. They broke it down by percentage of the infractions that we may have seen and the like. It lasted an hour and a half, the debriefing, and then the entire international group dispersed. And that was it. And no more to it than that. We said our goodbyes to folks, and that was it. Went back to our respective hotels last night, got up in the morning, and headed back home. As I had mentioned before, many of the folks were leaving literally hours after that last debrief. Some of my Russian colleagues were going back at midnight. The Americans were going back at around 3 in the morning. All that to say, everybody dispersed quite rapidly. You know, that being said, the fact that everybody did disperse quite rapidly, there was goodbyes and there were friendships that were made along the way. Some would say it's a great opportunity to travel and all those things, but I want to tell you, there's that, but it's hard work. I mean, you know what was a week, it really seemed like a long time because your schedule was completely packed. So it was hard work for sure, but it was incredibly rewarding. And I guess back to the concept of you get to see a part of the world that you may not have gotten you might not normally go to. And that's so true for something like this, because not only do you go to that country that might be unique and the like, but you go deep into the countryside, into the villages where you definitely wouldn't go if you were there just as a tourist. So it's a really unique experience. So back to Canada now, the administration of finalizing all the details. I'll write up a little trip report on my experience, but I can tell you this, that I certainly do this again in a heartbeat. Following my dad's path and doing this was such a rewarding experience. Almost every step of the way, I was reflecting on how my dad would have reacted in this exact same situation, whether it was at a polling station, whether it was simply having breakfast or engaging in a conversation with a local that was stood outside the polling station. Some great stories that I had. I hope you enjoyed the journey that I went on. Again, I apologize for the lighting here, but it was the best I could do, given I arrived in Frankfurt Airport at one extremity of the terminal and had 45 minutes to get to the other extremity of the terminal, and it was a bit of a go, so I didn't have time to stop and shoot a little video. So this is what it is. It's on the plane, and we had one that started on the plane out of Charlottetown at 5 in the morning, and this one is going back the other way. So I really hope you enjoyed this journey. I hope you enjoyed a snapshot of what it is to do this international election observation work. It is very, very rewarding, and I certainly highly recommend it. I want to thank everybody for staying with me on the journey and staying with me in this conversation. And I really appreciate it, and I hope that it sparks other people to do exactly this, because there's no doubt about it, the world needs more Canada. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's GaleForceWins, WINS.com.